I've got a two-part video for you today. The first part is about bibliomancy, the art of divining with books. And the second part is going to be, for those of you who've been watching my videos over the past month or so, a little bit more LBRP controversy. So first of all, bibliomancy, what is it? Say you have a question that you would like to ask whatever divinity you pray to. Or let's say that there's a spirit that you're talking to and you'd like to get a definite answer without the trouble of going through an entire evocation into full manifestation of the spirit. A very simple way of talking to a spirit is through bibliomancy. And how does it work? It's very simple. You first of all think about what entity it is that you want to communicate with, and you talk as if that spirit was listening. It might be anything from a local spirit to an angel to a demon to one of the gods that you believe in if you are polytheistic, or to the one god if you are monotheistic. And this form of divination actually literally means communication with the divine. Divination. So yes, divination has been performed throughout the ages, and one of the reasonably early forms of divination was done thanks to the works of Homer. And this morning I was wanting to know an answer to a question that I'll tell you about a little bit later today in the video. And I was standing in front of my library thinking to myself, what book shall I pick for my particular divination today? And I closed my eyes and I stretched out my hand, and this happens to be the book that I picked up. In fact, Homer's works are traditionally what have been used for bibliomancy. Nowadays, people tend to rather use the Bible or the Quran or whatever other very important book exists in their lives. And the process is very simple. You speak out to the spirit or entity to which you want to speak and ask it a question, assuming that it can hear you. Then what you do is that you sit down, you relax, you spend some time thinking about your question, making it very clear in your mind, going over every aspect of the question, feeling every aspect of the question, maybe visualizing the possible answers to your question, iterating through a few possibilities, and then putting it to the spirit you want to talk to make a choice. Or maybe you want to ask a very vague question, a very open question, in which case you would just really think about what the question means to you, make it very clear in your mind, make sure you're not thinking about anything else at the same time, and just clear your mind of everything else and focus on your question. Then take some time feeling your book. I normally put mine on the spine and then take some time just going backwards and forwards like this, until I come to a place that just naturally feels right. And sometimes it's not the place that I thought was going to open that opens. But I always trust what happens to be the right place. And then with my eyes closed, I hover my hand over the 2 pages, trying to find a place that feels just about right. And sometimes my finger touches a place on the page, despite what I was intending. And then I'll have a look at it. And that, or very close around it, is going to be something relevant to my question. Sometimes it's my index finger that touches the page, sometimes it's my pinky, sometimes it's other fingers or even my thumb. But either way, I always trust that it wasn't a mistake, and I have a look at the particular sentence or context of the sentence to get an idea of the answer. Now, the reason I was using bibliomancy this morning rather than the tarot, which I would normally reach out for, was because I was asking a particular question about the LBRP. And you know, if you've been watching my videos recently, that I've been messing around with the LBRP a little bit, trying to find versions of it which maybe feel a little more authentic without just being a slave to dogma. And if you haven't seen my 2 previous videos on this topic, I do recommend you go and check them out. I've linked them down in the description. For those of you who have seen those 2 videos, you will know that I have swapped fire and air, and I have also swapped air and earth in my regular practice of invoking and banishing with the LIRP and the LBRP. I was very interested, by the way, and I thought I might show you this, to find that In Agrippa's second book of occult philosophy, he also associates the lion, fire, with Michael, the eagle, air, with Raphael, certainly not water, which would be Gabriel, and then man, water, with Gabriel, and Uriel with earth, the calf. But then yesterday, Damien Eccles released a new video, and it wasn't the topic of the video, but it was one of his throwaway comments that some people reverse the attributions of Raphael and Michael, giving Raphael fire and Michael air. And that got me thinking, and of course researching. While I am quite adamant that I prefer this order of the elements with fire, air, water, earth, water and fire being complementary and air and earth being complementary, could it be nevertheless that Raphael is still in the east and Michael in the north, Raphael being fire and Michael being air? Well, I've been doing the LBRP for a few years now, and I have always visualized Raphael with yellow robes, tinges of purple, and Michael with red robes, tinges of green. So that felt like quite an ask to switch that. But then was it that much more of an ask than actually moving them all around? And I thought, well, actually that was quite an ask as well. So, beyond the obvious initial resistance of, it's not what I'm used to, I started researching on whether it made sense. One of the things that had always bothered me is that Michael is represented with a sword. Now, when I first learnt the LBRP, I'm afraid I don't remember where I learnt the LBRP from. It may have been the book The Middle Pillar by Israel Regardie, but please don't quote me on that. Whoever it was who had written the text that I was reading recommended visualizing Michael with a fiery sword, and therefore I thought, okay, maybe the fact that the sword is fiery makes up for the fact that it is a sword, a symbol of air. But then it was Uriel who was given the fiery sword in the Book of Enoch to protect the gates at the entrance of the Garden of Eden, not Michael. So okay, having Michael as a symbol of air could possibly work. But then there was Raphael with his caduceus. And the caduceus is definitely a symbol of knowledge. It's the staff of Hermes, the double helix of understanding and data and the intellect. And then it occurred to me, just a few months ago, I made a video on the caduceus, wherein I pointed out that in America the caduceus is used as a symbol for hospitals, but that may be a mistake. It is in fact the rod of Asclepius, which is traditionally associated with healing. If you look at the flag of the WHO, the World Health Organization, it's the rod of Asclepius which features. The Blue Star of Emergency Services also features the rod of Asclepius. And in Europe, you'll never see a caduceus representing health services. It's always the rod of Asclepius. Could it be that the angel of healing, Raphael, is in fact holding the rod of Asclepius, the baton, symbol of fire, and not the caduceus, symbol of Hod and Mercury and knowledge and learning? So now let's look at what planetary spheres these archangels are associated to. And once again, let me turn to Agrippa, and we have over here Raphael in the sphere of the sun, Tiphareth, and Michael, in the sphere of Mercury, Hod. It makes good sense to me that the sun is the sphere of fire and that Mercury is the sphere of air. Air, the swords, the intellect. And this is where I get back to bibliomancy. I thought to myself, I should probably pick up my tarot and ask simply, which element does Raphael belong to? Which element does Michael belong to? And then I thought to myself, yeah, but the tarot decks that I have are all either Golden Dawn or Thelema tarot decks. Why don't I do a spot of bibliomancy? And so I went over to my bookshelf and closed my eyes and put my hands out in front of me, both hands. I've got one hand holding my phone right now. And I went forward, and my right hand touched that particular book, which happens to be the Iliad by Homer. And I asked, to which classical element is Raphael associated? And I closed my eyes and I opened the book on a random page, and I found the word pyre, which is a construction on which corpses are burnt. And then I asked the same question for Michael. And once again, I opened the book and I found the sails on the ship. And in fact, earlier on, I was talking about the caduceus and the rod of Asclepius, and that came to me as I was asking the question, but why does Raphael have the caduceus? And while I was asking the question, the thought of the rod of Asclepius just popped into my head, and I continued asking the question anyway, and I opened the book and it said, I think you already know. So that was really fun. I thought I'd share that with you guys. I hope the video has been enjoyable at least. We're really getting into the domain of personal gnosis at this point. And yes, as Damien Eccles pointed out yesterday, when you start messing around with what the Golden Dawn originally suggests, then yes, you run into trouble later on down the line where you have to make adjustments every step of the way. And I completely agree, But in my opinion, I feel like it's worth my while to make those little changes, and I'll certainly keep you updated on those little changes that I make as I go along, just to be more authentic to what I feel corresponds to my deepest instincts. And so this is what I currently have. I hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Please don't forget to leave a thumbs up and to subscribe down below. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and see you next time.